Hello everyone out there in the music community. This is Mike or Soldier 777 coming at you here. And I've been watching a few videos on the history of contemporary Christian music. And I know putting a video of that caliber is a big undertaking. I'm watching these videos, a few of these videos the past week or two or more. And I think there's one video or a line of videos on the YouTube that has probably several parts to the several videos. Part one and whatever, I think like 8 or 9 parts of a history of CCM for one guy that he put out. So, and as you may know, when you do an undertaking like this, a lot of details gets missed. So I want to focus on, and I want to give a brief history in a quick video of from the late 60s to the 1980 of the history of Christian music. So very early stage of Christian. And I want to focus on the Christian guitar-driven rock bands, in which there's only a few. So in the mainstream side of things, for the rock bands in the 70s, in terms of guitar-driven bands, not necessarily like hard rock and metal, but the guitar-driven bands, which a lot of these are, by definition, rock and hard rock and metal. There's a few of these bands I've noted, and they put a fair number of albums back in that day, back in the 70s. So as you may know, you have Scorpions, which put 7 albums, Queen 9 albums, Kiss 7, Blue Oyster Cult 7, UFO 8, Led Zeppelin 8, Black Sabbath 9, Thin Lizzy 10, Ted Nugent 7, Deep Purple 10, AC/DC 8, Aerosmith 6, Alice Cooper 12, Uriah Heep 13, Whitesnake 4, and Judas Priest 6. So basically, these bands, up till around 1980, put out these number of albums of these bands, of these guitar-driven bands or hard rock metal bands. So on the Christian side of things, the history of contemporary Christian music, as we know, there were like prototype contemporary Christian bands prior to the late mid 60s. To have some sort of a contemporary style, but not the guitar-driven style that we know of in the 70s and 80s. But I'm not going to focus on the lighter side of the Christian rock and pop. Bands like DeGarmo Key, Second Chapter of Acts, Phil Keaggy, Steve Kemp, and Keith Green. They're more the pop or the lighter side. But I will mention Larry Norman, who put out 6 albums in the late 60s, the 70s. 6 albums, which was known to be a grandfather of Christian rock. But there are 7 bands I want to briefly mention that were guitar-driven bands, or had a fair amount of guitars in their music, or at least some of the songs on their albums that they put out from the late 60s to 1980. Let's get right to it. So here we have Petra, who were formed in 72, and he put out 3 albums. Petra, self-titled in 74, Come and Join Us in 77, and Watch the Wire Then in 79. Servant, they were formed in the late 70s, another Jesus movement band. And as you may know, when the hippie movement, people got saved in the hippie movement and became Christians, and this thing known as the Jesus movement, a lot of these people formed some of these bands back in the day and started playing music. And a lot of these bands were folk or lighter rock or soft rock, as I mentioned. But the ones I'm mentioning are more of the more aggressive bands or the heavier bands or guitar-driven bands. So as I said, we have Servant, which formed in 77. And they put one album called Shallow Water in 79. And of course, next album came out until 1981. So they put one album in the 70s called Shallow Water 79. Then we had Jerusalem, were formed in 75, and they put out 2 albums, Volume 1 in 1978 and Volume 2 in 80. And Daryl Mansfield was in Gentle Faith. They put an album called Gentle Faith in 1976. He branched off and went solo, put Higher Power in 79 and Get Ready in 1980. Rez put out 3 albums, up to 1980, and more beyond that. But the first 3 albums was Waiting Your Reply in 78, Rainbows in 79, and Colors in 1980. And Barnabas was formed around 1977 and were active until 86. They put out about half dozen albums. The first one came out called Hear the Light, which came out in 1980. And then we have 100% Proof, formed in 78. They put out a 7-inch EP called New Wave Living in 1980 with 4 songs, and put a couple more albums since then in the 80s. I will mention 2 more bands. These bands were formed in 79 but didn't put out albums until the early 80s. So we have Daniel Band. They were formed in 79, but the first album called On Rock came out in 82. And Power Faith changed the name to the Gentiles. They were formed in 79. They changed the name to Gentiles in 79, which became known, and they changed the name to Saint in 1982. And they put out their first album not until 1984, the EP called Words of the Sun. So those bands are worthy of being mentioned as well. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 bands that I would consider be on the heavier side of rock, or just on the tipping scale on the heavier side of rock. Maybe with the exception of Servants. Servants not overly heavy, but they got some guitar driving music in the late 70s or early 80s. So I figure I mention Servants as well, because they're starting on the same level as Petra. So anyway, we have 9 bands, which is not very many back in the late 70s up around 1980 that were, like I say, guitar driven bands of that time. And of course, as you may know too, as the 1980s progressed, more and more bands came out, and bands gotten heavier and became more popular. Anyway, folks, that's my brief run of the history of Christian rock bands of the 70s up to 1980. My brief history, and I got no visuals to show because, well, I do have albums by Petra, Jerusalem, Daryl Mansfield, and Rez. I don't have any Servant, Barnabas, or 100% Proof. And a lot of my music is in crates because part of the reason why is I'm painting my rec room, which I haven't started yet. I've done some plastering. So some of my music is in crates, and so I figured to show you a brief run without much in visuals. Hey folks, that's my video. Hope you like it. Please like, subscribe, and comment. I got 127 subscribers. I'd like to have more. All the best. Have a great day. Bye now.